What's up guys, today's video I am gonna do a detailed review and pick the top 5 best budget smartphones 2022. After doing proper researches, we came to the conclusion that meets the best in terms of overall. Kindly leave a like if you find this helpful, and I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications if you haven't. We will be also providing affiliates link to purchase from Amazon. Kindly use to for best offers and purchase from anywhere in the world. We'll be back with more videos. Motorola has kept the headphone jack, which is nice. I'm also glad to see a USB Type-C port here. The Aurora Gray color unit that I'm testing hides fingerprints well, so it's not too hard to maintain a pristine look. The rear fingerprint sensor doesn't miss a beat, but the unlocking process is a bit slow. Face recognition is much slower, and so I never ended up using it. I like the rear camera module design of the Moto G10 Power. It doesn't protrude too much and you get a total of 4 sensors, which is not often seen at this price. On the other hand, the HD Plus display looks unmistakably low budget, with jagged edges visible on icons and slight color banding in some gradients in photos. Viewing angles aren't the best either. Initially, I did find the brightness to be inadequate, however this display is still very legible even under direct sunlight. The Moto G10 Power uses Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 SoC, which is modestly powerful but certainly not the best in this segment. Realm's recent Narzo 30A has a MediaTek Helio G85, which offers more power at a lower price. However, Motorola does make up for this in a way by offering an official IP52 rating for water resistance, and dual-band Wi-Fi. The Moto G10 Power does support plenty of satellite navigation systems and has all the basic sensors, although it's missing a compass. The lack of bloatware is always refreshing and I didn't encounter any ads or spammy notifications during my week-long review period. Motorola has struck the best balance, in my opinion, between offering a stock Android experience and adding creature comforts such as gaming mode, which I think is something HMD Global should learn from. The Moto G10 Power doesn't heat up during regular use, but the back gets mildly warm when gaming. Speaking of which, simple titles such as Xenowork run just fine, but heavier games such as Call of Duty Mobile will have to be played at lower graphics settings for a decent enough gameplay experience. The single speaker gets loud and sound quality is decent. You can enable equalizer presets for the speaker too. Watching videos isn't a great experience due to the underwhelming display, but this phone is serviceable. The TCL 20 Pro 5G has a fairly big body, so some might struggle to reach the side buttons, but we didn't have that trouble. The edges of the display are curved, though, making the phone pretty comfortable to hold. There's a USB-C port and 3.5mm headphone jack on the phone, as well as a power button and volume rocker on the right edge, and a custom button on the left. You can choose what this button does when it's pressed, double tapped or held, and we found it really useful to map common functions to it. The back of the phone looks pretty great, with its turquoise glass shell sparkling in the light. There's also a gray version of the phone, but we can't attest to how that looks. Photos don't really pick it up, so it's really something you need to see to understand. The TCL 20 Pro 5G has a 6.7-inch AMOLED screen, broken up by a cutout for the front-facing camera in the top center. The edges of the display are curved, as we've said, which is a pretty premium feature for a phone of this price, though one not everyone likes. The resolution is FHD+, but the refresh rate is only 60 Hz, which might disappoint some people as even budget phones in 2022 can get 120 Hz. Some people don't care about screen refresh rate though, which is likely something TCL is banking on. We found the screen to be quite good looking, as AMOLED tech lends itself to bold colors and top contrast, but the icing on the cake is TCL's Vision technology borrowed from its TVs. This digitally upscales content, making games and videos look HDR, and tweaking images viewed, to make them better looking. The TCL 20 Pro 5G has 4 rear cameras. This isn't the phone's strongest department, but they're totally fit for purpose. There's a 48MP f/1.7 main, 16MP f/2.4 ultra-wide, 5MP f/2.2 macro and 2MP f/2.4 depth sensing camera. On the front, we've got a 32MP f/2.45 snapper. We'll start with the selfie camera, because that was our favorite of the snappers. We were pleased with the results of these photos as they had good dynamic range and a fair amount of detail. Portrait snaps handled the artificial bokeh blur well too, though sometimes the subject looked a little over sharp. The Samsung Galaxy A52 5G is a tale of two phones, the outer and inner. Samsung wholly redesigned the A52 5G skin compared to the outgoing A51, but it carried over many of the specs from the previous generation. This leads us to wonder if it's worth the upgrade or not. There's nothing subtle about the Galaxy A52 5G. It has fully adopted the design language seen on the Samsung Galaxy S21 and Note 20 series to complete the family picture. That means it has a straightforward look with a super chunky camera module on the rear. The resemblance to its flagship siblings is obvious when you compare the family members to one another. Moreover, everything about the phone is bigger than its predecessor. It's taller, thicker, and heavier. Not by much, mind you, but by enough to notice. One thing separates the A52 5G from its more expensive Galaxy S brethren: materials. Where the pricier models are metal and glass, the A52 5G's rear is made of polycarbonate. Both the mid-frame and the rear panel are made from plastics and the front panel is covered in Gorilla Glass 5. It's worth pointing out that the rear plastics are more durable than glass and you might be able to get away with using the phone without a case. Further, Samsung upgraded the Galaxy A52 5G with dust and water protection thanks to the IP67 rating. That's a huge bonus over last year's phone. Despite the plastics, the matte materials are appealing and could be mistaken for glass from a distance. The overall feel of the phone is quite good. The remaining design elements are function over form, but that's not a bad thing. The power button and volume toggle are high on the right edge of the phone. While the buttons are easy to find and use, feedback borders on cheap. The combo SIM card/memory card tray is tucked into the top edge. It supports microSD cards up to 1 TB. Samsung kept the phone's left edge entirely free of design elements, but the bottom contains the USB-C port, headphone jack, and downward firing speaker. Together with the earpiece, the phone produces stereo sound. For a $500 phone, I was hoping for slightly better. Music comes across as a bit thin, with high-frequency sounds prevailing over bass tones. It's fine if you're not overly discerning, but there are phones out there that sound better. Still, the A51 5G didn't have stereo speakers at all, so that's something. The iPhone SE has exactly the same design and display as the iPhone 8 from 2017. Using this form factor and screen hardware allowed Apple to keep the cost of the device as low as it has, as it didn't need to invest in a whole new manufacturing process. It feels like the iPhone world has moved on in 3 years though. Now the 4.7-inch screen with the chunky bezels above and below feels like it belongs to the past. In that time the flagship iPhone range has moved to an all-screen design, barring a notch at the top. You're presented with barely any bezels, while with more premium aluminum inside. Things have got a little weightier in recent years, so returning to the iPhone 8 design means Apple is bringing back its more lightweight phone, bridging the gap between the older iPhone SE and the behemoth but impressive iPhone 11 Pro Max, for example. Indeed, picking up the new iPhone SE, the first thing you'll notice is how lightweight it is. Again, some might not notice the change if they're coming from a smaller phone from 2016-17, but trust us, it could have been a lot worse, as the devices in the newer all-screen iPhone ranges are a lot heavier. While the iPhone 8's design might feel like an archaic choice for a new iPhone, it makes a lot of sense in the iPhone SE 2020, and for some who don't particularly care for the latest features, this more familiar design will be a lot more desirable. One suspects that if Apple had rebooted the original iPhone SE shape, with the smaller 4-inch screen and clickable home button, the new iPhone SE 2020 features a haptic button that doesn't move. It would still have sold well, but the larger 4.7-inch LCD screen is more useful for today's apps, which make good use of the extended display. One thing that many will miss is the 3.5mm headphone jack. We've been lamenting its loss for many moons now, but as the original iPhone SE, or other cheaper phones that are 2 to 3 years old, that you might be upgrading from, had this feature, we can see it might still cause consternation. Google is pretty proud of the Pixel 5a's display, calling it the biggest one ever on a bezel-less Pixel, which covers the Pixel 4a, 4a 5G, and 5. At 6.43 inches, the full HD OLED screen on the Pixel 5a is vibrant and bright. It's not the most impressive panel we've ever seen, but it's very good all the same, especially at this price. One thing I really appreciate is how easily I can see what's on the display when I'm out in direct sunlight. When I was out wandering around to capture photos for this Pixel 5a review, I found myself surprised and impressed because I could see the photos I'd just taken. Normally, I have to find shade to see the photos clearly enough. Not so with the 5A, and not every phone that crosses my desk can claim that. Like the rest of the phone, the Pixel 5a's display gets the job done. Neither awful nor amazing, the screen is average in the best kind of way. One area that has definitely improved over the Pixel 4a is the viewing angles. With the 4a, you'd start to notice distortion pretty quickly when viewing the phone from an off angle. I ran into no such problem with the Pixel 5a. In fact, the display has fantastic viewing angles and little visible distortion until you get to closer to 180 degrees, as you do with most phones. Once you go with an OLED screen, it's hard to go back to LCDs on a phone. That comes down to how deep the blacks get, which lends itself to a sense of foreboding and dread in dark games like Limbo or adding stark contrast to the harsh orange scenes in Blade Runner 2049. Even Genshin Impact with its anime-style graphics or Dead Cells pixel art look amazing on the Pixel 5a. The resolution is just crisp enough to make nature photos almost look like you're actually there, too. Even something as mundane as a YouTube video or sports clip looks great on this display.